Mike, check 1 2 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I could never tell which came first, the chicken or the egg. And that's the feeling that I get a lot of times when I think about Pokemon video games and Pokemon the trading card game. See, my first exposure to Pokemon was back in the mid 90s, and I remember picking up Pokemon Blue. That was the first Pokemon game that I'd actually ever bought. And the reason why I bought it was because, quite honestly, at the time, everybody was playing this game. And, the hype and the frenzy around it was so compelling. I really just bought it out of curiosity. And to my surprise, I actually really liked it as a game. It was a lot of fun. But at that same time, I remembered that a lot of my friends started coming to school with these packs of Pokemon cards. And at lunchtime, during recess, you would see dudes, guys, girls in a corner somewhere battling it out, like actually duking it out in Pokemon, but like using the playing cards. And I remember at a certain point, it'd be crowds of kids around two people just slamming Pokemon cards down, doing moves and dueling it out. And it got to the point where I remember some kids that I knew, they would come to school with these entire binders. It got to the point where they would come to school with binders filled with Pokemon cards, looking for people to battle, looking for people to duel. And it just became such a frenzy from the card perspective. And I felt like at some point the video games kind of took over. Not that the card scene died down, but it became less popular to play the card game than it did to play the video game. Because the video game, as you got older, like when you got into high school and college, you could just kind of play Pokemon discreetly. But as you got older, there weren't many, 17, 18, 19-year-olds like just playing Pokemon, the card game like that. That a lot of kids aged out of Pokemon the card game pretty much once middle school was over. By the time we got to high school, no one was really playing Pokemon like that, at least not in my schools. And so the card game kind of died down. But it seems like there's a bit of this resurgence of the Pokemon cards, and I don't know if it's because people are playing the game. I became aware of this resurgence the other day when I left my house the other morning, maybe like late last week, and I went to the supermarket to go grab some milk. And I remember I drove past a GameStop. I drove past a GameStop, and there was this long line in front of GameStop. And I was like, why? I slowed down. I was like, why is there so many people standing in front of GameStop? And mind you, this is East Coast, all right? This isn't like Southern California. It's 12 degrees out here. Dudes was standing in line in 12-degree weather. And the GameStop that they were waiting to open, that GameStop wasn't going to be opening for at least another 2 hours. So in my mind, I was like, okay, what would possess someone to stand in 12-degree weather for over 2 hours waiting for a GameStop to open in the middle of January? It didn't make sense to me. So I started looking at the windows of the GameStop store because, sometimes there'll be flyers out there kind of letting you know if a new game was releasing. And I was like, man, what game is coming out? But I didn't see any indicators. So I didn't stop to ask anyone what the hype was about. I just kind of went about my business and figured I'd check the GameStop later on that day. Well, later on that day came, and I wound up going back to that GameStop. And when I walked inside, I asked the employee, I said, is there a new game that came out today? And they were like, no new games came out. Nope, it's just the same old stuff, And I was like, well, there was a massive line outside the store earlier. What was that about? And they said, that's because the new Pokemon pack came out. The new Pokemon cards came out. And I was like, wow, Pokemon cards? I was like, people are lining up for Pokemon cards okay. And I'm just gonna tell you right now, in New York, New Yorkers really only stand online in 12-degree weather for like one of a few things. The first is Jordans. Like, I don't know if people stand outside and wait online for Jordans anymore, but I know back in the day, it didn't matter how cold it was. It could have been the edge of tomorrow. It could have been the day after tomorrow, whatever that movie was where, everything froze in a matter of seconds. You would see guys frozen waiting for a pair of Jordans. It was either Jordan's or maybe like a really hyped video game. But I had never seen, at least not in the last 15 to 20 years, anyone standing outside waiting for Pokemon cards. And so I started asking a little bit more, and he told me that there was this new, I guess, expansion pack or something that was releasing, and it was very popular. And a lot of the folks that I saw standing online weren't kids, right? They weren't kids. So I was like, I know these adults aren't buying these cards to sit down and, have a poke battle with their friends. And immediately my mind said, okay, there must be some value to these cards. There must be some type of hype around it, which is boosting the resale price for some of these cards. And sure enough, when I went back home and I did a little bit of research, like 10 seconds worth of research, I realized that these cards are now highly sought after, which means they are reselling on the secondary market for, 2, 3, 4 times their original price. And when I saw that, it kind of just reminded me of a lot of the hype and speculation that we saw in 2020 around video games. And I think what we're starting to see is the speculators migrate, right? So I feel like that there is a group of, whether it be collectors or resellers, there's that group that really just speculates. They speculate on anything. They'll speculate on baseball cards, comic books, Pokemon cards, video games, sneakers, basketball jerseys, Beanie Babies. There is a group of folks that will speculate on anything. And if there's anything out there that looks like it has any type of resale value, they're going to jump on it. I think that about 4 years ago, what made up the video game market was, yes, collectors, was, yes, video game enthusiasts, and was, yes, a lot of casual collectors. But there was definitely a massive influx of speculators, right? And we're starting to see where a lot of the hype, right? A lot of the hype is being pulled out of retro video games, is, being pulled out of the video game collecting scene. And a lot of that hype is now being transferred to other places. And I think the people that are pulling that hype away are the speculators. They're the ones that don't necessarily have any kind of nostalgic ties to retro games. They're not folks who, even enjoy video games on any level, whether it's the art, the cover art, collecting it, playing it. They're really there just to speculate, see what games they can buy low and sell high, and move on, right? And just seeing that line for the Pokemon cards is kind of an indicator to me that some of the slowdown that we're seeing in retro game popularity and a lot of the ability to kind of just sell games and, a lot of the hype around it, a lot of that has left with the speculators. And so now it looks like in 2025, Pokemon cards are the wave. They're the thing that a lot of people are running to. They're the thing that a lot of people are putting their money into in hopes that these cards will continue to increase in value. We kind of saw that with the whole Pops craze. I know Pops were really, really popular, no pun intended. And I think that, now I'm not seeing as many people talk about Pops. I'm not seeing Pops be the real main thing. And I just feel like when it comes to video games and things like Pops or like Pokemon cards, the difference is that whether everyone's into a video game or not, you always have the ability to put that video game in and play it by yourself and enjoy that game. Video games do have inherent value into them. When it comes to things like Pokemon cards, I would even say, just skipping Pokemon cards for a second and just going to comic books. Even if, like, for a comic book, right? Whether you are a collector or not, you can still sit down and read that comic book. So even comic books have some type of inherent value to them. But when it comes to like Pokemon cards, they're really designed for you to battle someone, like their utility, how you would use Pokemon cards. And if I'm wrong, let me know down in the comments. If you can like battle yourself in Pokemon, like if you don't need a second player to play the physical Pokemon card game, then I'm absolutely wrong. But last time I checked, you actually need to use those cards. You have to like battle someone. So if you're not battling anyone with Pokemon cards, like, to me, there's really like no utility to them outside of just having them to look at. And so to me, the speculation there is just, not only is it just way more risky, it's just, I don't know, it's not the same. It's not as fun as video games, because video games, like I said, no matter what, whether there's 1,000 people playing the video game or one person playing the video game, you'll still be able to play it and enjoy it on your own. So, you guys let me know down in the comments about this, because, like I said, I'm a novice when it comes to the Pokemon thing, and I'm just not sure. I don't feel like the Pokemon speculation and the retro video game speculation um, carry the same risks. But I'm interested to know your thoughts. Let me know, and I'll catch you in the next video. It's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.